Okay, day 116, the DynCorp harvest. A lot of people ask me why am I focusing on DynCorp so much. Well, it's a part of the black budget, so we don't know anything about it, and it needs light, it needs sunshine to disinfect. And their history is just rat lines. They just constantly are getting involved in trafficking, sex trafficking, trafficking of children, drug trafficking, arms trafficking, oil trafficking, illegal oil trafficking, and organ harvesting, organ trafficking. So where do they learn this stuff? This is systemic. This isn't an individual mercenary going overseas. They go over with the best of intentions. A lot of the sheriffs or people on the highway patrol will go over to these countries where there's UN peacekeepers, and they're taught this system of trafficking. They're encouraged to take young wives. They're encouraged to deal in drugs. Sometimes they get involved in these organ rat lines and so forth. So the key focus that I've taken recently is making sure when these folks come home to to become a sheriff in a county that they don't bring these same habits with them, and that the folks like Pug Winokur who designed this system don't force them into renewing these habits. That's the key. So one of the things that happened after I made this film is I now have 143 different pages of sheriffs like Bob Mosher. I put two names out there, and now there's 143 pages of sheriffs with DynCorp. Now that's really good. What I'm looking for is I don't want to single out sheriffs that just served their country and did a good job in these different theaters of war. That's not what I'm trying to do. But when there's gaps in the resume, 4 or 5 years gaps in the resume, and we know they served in Bosnia and Kosovo, that's what I'm trying to say is when you run for office, this is a publicly elected office, you need to disclose all this information about where you were, who worked for you, and so forth. And I also think it's important to say who your subordinates were. This is Sheriff Lope in California, in Siskiyou County. And again, this move toward militarization, there's not a lot of difference between this guy over here in Colombia or Central America versus this guy here in Southern Oregon or Northern California. And again, this is the tendency toward militarizing that I think needs checking and needs exposure. I'm going to get a heart one here. I just wanted to follow up and say there's this video out where a child is being beaten in a sex trafficking ring, and people are comparing the voice. He's saying, I'm your father, the whole kind of Luke thing, while he's smacking him. And they're comparing his voice to John Podesta. In no way do I endorse that. I don't believe that's John Podesta. I do believe, the car salesman puts a picture of the car behind his desk. The organ salesman puts a picture of doctors taking organs out. He's suggesting, because it's illegal, he can't be straight out and say organs are us, but he can suggest it. He can suggest it through rituals and so forth. So I just wanted to cover that briefly. I know this is out of order, but again, the CIA, through programs like Operation Underground Railroad and JTTF, come down on these sheriffs and say, we want to run an operation in your county. And then you say, well, that seems like entrapment or whatever. Then you say, okay, well, we got our DHS grant that we're going to be giving you next year may not be as big. So there's an economic pressure through these DHS grants. So you've got these people that are publicizing these Operation Underground Railroad. This is just a private vigilante operation. This is not a public law enforcement agency. So Tim Ballard is ex-DHS, but he has no U.S. law enforcement. He's not elected. He's just a private vigilante group doing extortion. So for asset seizure. So I and Tim Ballard have the same rank. So this goes back to the Muslim Brothers. This is the Juan brother. That's 22 years old. He's making more than anybody in the House IT committee, and he has access to all of our intelligence agencies. So I just wanted to keep this story going because they're trying to obfuscate it by saying there's nine spies and so forth. This is the tip of the iceberg. There was 3 Awan brothers, the 3 Muslim brothers, but I am talking to people at DHS saying Valerie Jarrett and that Yates gal has embedded all kinds of people in the State Department and in other of these agencies that have allegiances to the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, again, I've gone to defend a Muslim kid here who was entrapped by Andrew McCabe in the Portland Christmas tree bomber case, and I've taken a lot of crap for that in terms of life disruption. So it's not me against Muslims; it's me against the Muslim Brotherhood. That's my objection. So I don't want to sound like McCarthy with get the communists out of the State Department, but you cannot have someone who has allegiance to another country. And going back to the first slide, or another idea, a caliphate, allegiance to a caliphate. I'm going to deem these three guys on the front page here the Awan brothers. These are the three Muslim brothers from now on. I'm not going to call them the Three Stooges, but the three Awan brothers. The problem with this Muslim Brotherhood is, let's say this is Awan that's looking at all the data from the Foreign Intelligence Committee in the House. Let's just say these are two congressmen. He calls, and here he is on the phone in Yemen, and here comes our Navy SEAL, and that plane goes down. Loose lips sink ships. This isn't just a battle of Democrats versus Republicans, or travel ban or whatnot. This ends in death. This ends in the death of American soldiers when we have this kind of infiltration. So that's the only point I'm trying to make. I'm not trying to come down on Muslims, but I'm just saying when you have this kind of infiltration, it's a bad deal. Again, there's a system pushing down on these military law enforcers. It's called JTTF, and it's infiltration. And they bring in programs for asset forfeiture, like Underground Railroad, like Operation Underground Railroad. Again, the problem I have is they're rounding up local girls to do this. They're not doing it, but they're getting gangs to round up local girls to do this. And that's where the guy's beating the kid, saying, from now on you call me father, from now on you call me father, and you keep smacking him. If you haven't seen it, it's very disappointing. Also, Claude Destre has asked me here through lots of intermediaries to take down this picture of the Boston bombing. Well, I never said this was Claude Destre. I know that's Claude Destre because he was at this funeral, and I just put the picture up here saying, why is someone look almost exactly like him with the at the Boston bombing? Now I know what happens a lot is they'll explode bombs when they're trying to cover the murder of some of these girls that are involved in these sex rings. So you might want to look into that. Last slide on the point of this whole thing is pushing down on people. Here are great Border Patrol agents, okay? They are one of the most patriotic group that you can find. But if you have an Alan Burson who has an open borders policy and has kind of the really tight contacts with the Clintons and so forth, they can force an open border policy. They can say, look the other way for a year, no search at San Ysidro, and they can move that. They can say, okay, we're going to do Las Cruces now, no search. Then we're going to do El Paso, Juarez, no search. Then we're going to do Brownsville, no search. And you can keep moving it around, the shell game. So I don't know if other Border Patrol agents want to come forward and talk about the bans on no search at the different border crossings. I think Yuma's going to be another one. But those are the key ones that Trump has to close down. And hopefully Eric Prince will get the contract, and we'll go from there. Okay, that's it for this morning.